Today's topic, if you look at it, this is a small piece of a big picture uh, where when we do some projects which are of largely social in nature, okay, or let's say as part of government, where the beneficiaries, the audiences are pretty large in magnitude. Okay, so which we can also relate it to a pure commercial corporate setting as well. But there, actually, if you look at it, many things are given black and white for us to do. So this is a little more complex, where the truly, okay, the project management plays a vital role, but in reality, quite often it is missing. Okay, that's what we can see, since we have people from government and other senior functions. I guess you will appreciate, and then yeah, ponder your thoughts around this. So I'll just take two slides from what we discussed before about project management. To tell you the truth, I haven't deep dig about it, so I'm just brought forward because these things are not day by day. It is changing. Okay, maybe annually these things, the nature and the statistics will change, but not annual. But it being reassured in the very recent, when we see India is lowest in terms of the negative economic growth. So we shared the statistics before about India, okay, and the government's very ambitious plan for the coming years, for which the investment runs into few lakhs of crores. Okay, so even if you look at it, even that is not sufficient for the country of our size and magnitude and the needs of ours. Now, when COVID came in, it actually further aggravated this problem. So maybe we don't know, twofold, threefold, okay, of investment we need. And we have seen recently in the paper, India is worst affected because of the most stringent lockdown measures undertaken by us. So maybe we just cannot say whether it is correct or incorrect, but we need to act on it. So we need to rebuild India. So as I was telling you last time, running the nation, building the nation. Okay, if you do both, quite often our focus is on running the nation. Okay, which is more of a non-project. Okay, okay, take the do the day in and day out course, run it. Okay, that is not project which will simply, okay, pass on the baton from one government to another government and this government to next government. Okay, nothing concrete will happen. Okay, in order to do that, India needs projects and programs of huge magnitude, global scale. Okay, so that is the part. And also last time we have seen some of the trend across the world. If you look at it, any project, the success is only a halfway mark. Okay, from a schedule or time perspective, from a budget perspective, from meeting the original intent for which a project is started, considering all of them, what we achieve is only 50%. Now, if 50%, if you are failing, means lakhs of crores, okay, is being drained, okay, the taxpayers' money and other things. Okay, it is not the case with the government and public sector. It is also the case with the private sector. So in every corner, okay, the project is very fundamental to the country and the whole world. So the PMI promotes it something like a project economy. If you want to build, rebuild economy, you need project. Now, quite often, projects don't fail because of technical flaw or lack of engineering or scientific acumen. Projects fail because of lack of project management capability and maturity, okay, which organizations, many of them don't really understand. Okay, so I don't know, that's one reason is my calling for the last 20 plus years. I'm just going on in that direction to evangelize, promote, help, support, handhold, okay, project program management within enterprises and also for the public sector and government arena. So the next thing that we have seen last time is the big picture about the project management. So often we take it for granted. Okay, we don't understand that beginning a project is sowing a mustard seed, and seeing the fruit of it is like a big tree, okay, coming up. So unless we do a proper homework, are we undertaking the right projects? Do we govern it well across the life cycle of the project? Do we involve all the 360-degree, all the key stakeholders to participate in the project? Do we look at an end-to-end comprehensive holistic picture about the project? And do we see all the elements in a project are tightly knit together? We can't see them in isolation. Okay, so everything is integrated. So we need to see a project as a dynamic environment, a dynamic model that we are attempting. And depending upon the size, complexity, the need before us, the solution that we are attempting, we need to be adaptive, okay, willing to change, and in alignment with what the changes that are happening around. So these are the 5 core principles of project management. Even if we miss any of these things, the project will fall short of expectations. Okay, so this is how we looked at last time as a bird's eye view of importance and criticality and how to go about. So this you translate into different ways. One of the way is to have a life cycle approach for any project, no matter you're just doing a small kindergarten project according to a teacher's expectation with the child and you being a project manager, or you do a nation building project of space project of or some defense project that runs into 24 to 36 months and few hundred crores. Okay, so no matter what the project is, okay, we need to have a life cycle approach. Okay, so that life cycle approach goes with identification, definition, and then setting up the framework, governance, take the funding and other key approvals, and then but do it progressively, iteratively in the form of planning and implementation. And then logically keep milestones or stage gates to see how we are doing. Are we doing the right thing? Are there any mid-course corrections possible? Does it still really make sense? If it doesn't, can we kill it as early so that it doesn't suck the organization's resources? So those kind of decision gates, place it where required. And when it is done, it needs to be orderly closed. Take the lessons for future projects, transition it for the subsequent operation for use by the beneficiaries. Okay, so that approach is essential. So all through this life cycle, so we saw something called a meal. Okay, we need to monitor, we need to evaluate the results, we need to hold accountable of various stakeholders for their stake and allow them to participate, and then continually we need to learn, improve. Okay, so now all these things are not come by mere intuition. They come with a conscious kind of practicing of various systems, processes, tools, techniques, and the required automation and involvement of people and stakeholders. Okay, so that's what broadly we saw last time in terms of why project management is critical. Okay, now in this session, what we are going to see is we are going to take that first step. Okay, how do we identify and define the project? I think there are a couple of nice proverbs come to me. Yeah, a well or a solid or good beginning is half done. Okay, is a proverb. And also, if I want to put it in a the opposite mode, I think only the Tamil word comes to my mind. Sorry for others. There is something called Mudar Konal, Muttrum Konal. Can anyone translate? Parmeshwaran, can you try? Anybody who don't understand Tamil here? I guess there are few.
I think first wrong, everything first something is wrong and everything follows wrong.
Yeah, very difficult. No, it's in Tamil. It is so beautiful. Okay, so a well beginning is half done. If you make a mistake in the beginning, okay, that mistake will continue all through. Okay, whether it is choosing a career or choosing a spouse or choosing a project or choosing a government, it all the same. Okay, it's very, very important. So it's a huge endeavor. It is strategically important that we need to do that carefully. So that is why I thought let's deliberate on this. The first step, how do we go forward? Okay, so today's theme is how do we systematically identify and define the project? Okay, and then you take it to stakeholders, get the approval, get the funding, get the clearances, and then start planning and implementing it. So we'll do that the first phase today. So what are the things that involve? Okay, I don't think we have time to cover all these things, but we will try to attempt some of the important elements of it. So let me put my mobile on silent. So the first and basic step is identifying and defining needs. Okay, that's very important. And then around that need, the third step, how the needs can be categorized, and there is a small theory around that we need to understand, that we will deliberate. And then we'll move on to how the stakeholder identification and analysis is very, very important when you identify and design the project. And then the next step that we will do is, there are two analytical techniques. Okay, one is problem tree and a solution tree or objectives tree. I think that will be very interesting for all of us to look at it. And based on that, how do you go about designing the project with the current state, future state? And one another things I would like to focus is the logical frame. Okay, they call it as a log frame. Recently, I came across Niti Aayog coming out with a big tender, okay, for a nationwide capacity building in project program management, and they're going to do it around this. I don't know how much of what we are talking about they have brought into it, but this log frame, they want to implement it nationwide. Okay, so I want you to have a look at it. In fact, when I look at that tender, I found that only a company who makes around 250 crores over the last 3 years can apply. So I felt, okay, we are too small to do that for such an intervention. Then I decided maybe God willing, He will give us kind of growth 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line. We will be able to participate in such nation building projects. Okay. So that's what we will look at it. So we may not cover all of them, maybe half of them we will do, but I can send this slide deck to you all, so you can go kind of a deep dive into it. And all these resources are freely available in the net in the form of a project management standard for government, NGOs, and the organization that work in societal projects, social projects. Okay, so there's a wealth of material, so you can go and read about it. Okay, so I'm only kind of creating an awareness, igniting something in you, a flame in you. What could be the outputs of what we are discussing? So we will learn and see how to do the systematic analysis of stakeholders, how to build this log frame, project log frame, that will actually lead to project proposal. I will not be discussing on proposal part because different organization do it differently according to their needs. So we will skip that part, and then the charter part is actually the next step, which is this will feed as an input for the project charter that comes as part of the setup. Okay, so the first two are the critical outputs along with few more. Within this particular phase, if you want to put certain decision gates, it will be like this. Okay, you do a systematic need assessment and see, okay, how we should go about with this project, and then build on the concept note, which the central part of the concept note is the log frame, okay, which we will discuss. Then after building that log frame, you need to do certain analysis in terms of economic analysis, technical analysis, and environmental analysis, social analysis in terms of feasibility, and then justify the project, put the proposal beforehand. So this could be the stage gates in this particular phase. So yeah, I've just put it in the form of processes. So let's go into it as a need analysis. Okay. Now you will see the reality at the end. In the last slide, I'll show it. Okay, so you will see that, okay, these are all the nice things to do. Okay, now quite often, do we have time to do, or do our sponsors or the government or the department is willing to listen to us, or willing to have time and funding to do that? These are all the questions that will immediately come to your mind as I walk you through. Okay, I'll tell you these are all noises. Okay, now as a senior management professional decision maker, okay, so when we do this introspection and learning, we need to kind of block those noises. Okay, now, because the moment you allow those noises to skepticism to come in, our learning stops. Okay, so we need to do that, and then we need to ask that question: in the midst of such noises, what can I do? Okay, so within my bandwidth of control, am I doing it for my own internal project, for which there is no external environment influences or blockings? Okay, in my own personal project, am I doing it a little bit? Okay, if you start asking the question, your sphere of influence will increase and the sphere of concern will decrease. Okay, yeah. So the first part is, as I told you, need analysis. So typically the need analysis, okay, is done based on three data sources: secondary data, which we have a lot of reports, documents, historical informations within the organization, within the department, within certain institutional level, the sector level, okay, which is facilitated by, for example, FICCI, CII, and our own government's statistical and program implementation. So there are many data sources, okay, which we need to pick up, okay, and say that is this the need or the project that we are thinking about has a clear requirement or needs within the country or within the state or within your organization or within your geography. And we should not just go by that. You all know that, okay, the data is a data. It can be manipulated for your own expected outcome. So then we can also get into some kind of surveys. Okay, we call it as a primary quantitative survey, which is done through various instruments, measurements, observations, and other stuff. Okay, that will be still better accurate than the secondary data. And then on top of it, on specific instances, we should go back and have dialogue with the people. Okay, so that's where the stakeholder identification analysis comes into the picture. So that gives us the primary qualitative data. So you'll see here the different ways. If it is internal project, brainstorming, focus groups, visioning sessions, interviews, so like that, okay, you go and do that. Okay, so then you get a better data. Now, if you look at it at the face of it, often we think the reverse way. Okay, when we sit and see the clear documented evidences, we think that is more accurate. Secondary data is more accurate. But according to this need analysis, the secondary data is least accurate. Primary qualitative is next best accurate. Primary quantity is better accurate. Qualitative is most accurate. Okay, because that comes from the very people, from their heart. Okay, now in terms of KM practice, knowledge management practice, I can relate it to something called 3 levels of knowledge. This explicit knowledge, what largely related to secondary data. Tacit knowledge, which largely related to primary qualitative data that comes from the people of their experience, their insights, all that will come out, which is very difficult to put it in questionnaires, surveys, and reports and white papers. Okay, so this is a very, very important step to do the need analysis. As I switch, please feel free to stop me. Then only, okay, it will be more effective. Okay, so I encourage you to stop and interact more. Now, having picked up the data, okay, through various sources, there is something called triangulating data is very important, okay, because it may be done at different levels. For example, when we take it from one source, you will don't know whether it is right or wrong, okay. So that is the problem with one data. Now, when you take, so we need to go for a secondary source, second source. When I take second source, the problem comes up is, if the second source is different from first, contradicts, we don't know which is true, okay, whether this is true or that is true. That problem, new problem comes up. So they say that you triangulate it, go for a third source, okay. So when you go for a third source, naturally you will see that it falls onto any one of the previous 2 sources. And if that also brings a very conflicting, a third opinion, then you look at your own data collection method. Okay, so your question may not be good, or that needs to be refined. So that makes you to point it back to you. Am I asking the right question? Why the people are confused? Okay, so this is, it may look funny, but you will see that it's a very, very interesting perspective, how you, okay, need to assimilate and then go for and further analysis and decision making. Okay, so that is called triangulating, okay, the needs of the people. So now you'll see that there could be, when it comes to need, there could be hundreds, and among them, probably the top 10 may need additional investigation, talk to them. Among them, maybe top 1 or 2 may need, okay, this kind of looking at the secondary source, the tertiary source, all those things. So we need to kind of draw the granularity depending upon, okay, how you are screening the data, and then slowly evolving towards the final, okay, analysis and outcome. Now, the third observation in terms of the needs, this is very interesting. Okay, so usually this person, the scientist Bradshaw, categorizes needs into 4 types. Okay, so you'll see, you can identify yourself with the projects that you are doing, and then how you collect requirements and other things with the stakeholders. Okay, when you go for this need analysis, people express sometimes the felt needs. Okay, so the felt needs reflects the aspirations, dreams of the stakeholders. Okay, which often may be very subjective, very personal. Okay, so that may not be really a need, it could be more of a want or expectations. Okay, so it can be very biased. So, but it is very important what they felt they are expressing. Okay, and then the second category of needs is expressed needs. Okay, so that means the need is being expressed by the community or the stakeholders in some explicit form. Okay, so you will see that as you walk through a village, you will see that there could be one hand pump and there will be a big queue or a queue of pots kept. Okay, especially you can see in the Chennai city. Okay, that water will come maybe or 20 minutes in a day. So you will see some 100 pots aligned. Okay, so that means it tells you something. Hey, there is some desperate problem around drinking water in this area. Okay, so we need to be watchful of that. So that is called expressed need. They express it as a felt need, but there is another way in which okay, they are expressing it in terms of a long waiting. It could be even in your own canteen. Okay, sometimes you are given only 45 minutes, you may have to stand 20 minutes in the queue. So that means you see that there is a improvement opportunity in terms of the food managing the logistics. So that will be very a concrete need. Okay, so you need to do that. The third part is normative needs. Okay, where the people comes with some kind of they are very professionally driven. They know that subject. They are specialist in that. Okay, so that will be the other type of need. So it comes in a very polished with statistics and data and other things. So that is part of normative needs. And then quite often people will compare. Hey, you see in the next village, they have a proper road, they have a good overhead tank, they get the water in that, we have nothing. Okay, so that is the other way. They compare with the benchmark and then express their needs. Okay, so we need to be sensitive of it, all these types of needs, and then okay, reassert one kind of need with another need, and then you need to come up with what needs to be done. Please remember, if there are about let's say 20 needs from a customer or from a society or for any particular project, out of maybe if you brainstorm it, you will get hundreds, of which you can screen 20, probably you can fulfill only 4 or 5. Okay, so it's very, very important at this stage to do these kind of understanding and the other stuff. I'll just pause here because this is how you do the current state analysis. Okay, whether it is a commercial project, defense project, or social project, or any community project. Any questions up to this point? No questions?
One question, please.
Yes,
this
sir.
Bradshaw 4 principle,
Yes, sir.
actually, is there any sequential need for that? Means first you have to consider felt needs, then express needs, normative needs, or comparative needs. Is it like that?
It is not really sequential, but the point here is don't just kind of be biased with one specific need. Okay, for example, especially we should not carried away by these felt needs, but it is very important to be an active listener to the felt needs. Okay, but reconfirm it with the form of an expressive need or normative need. Okay, or benchmark it with a comparative need. Okay, so whenever we are getting biased by a specific need, you see that we overdo on something, we ignore on something else. Because this exercise was not done properly. Okay, so that's the point. For example, sometimes we will see, I think nobody is there from oil and gas. When you dig a well, sometimes you see some kind of oily substance floating around. Immediately they may be alerted, hey, in our the belt, there is a petroleum available. Okay, it is a felt need. That is purely because of their ignorance. Okay, but it doesn't mean we need to ignore it. It could be anything. It may be because of some pollution that is happening around them. Okay, so that needs to be reconfirmed. I need to pay attention to that. Is that okay?
Yeah, Srinivasan sir, the link between all these three things that you told. So initially the analysis of data, then moving into the triangulating data, and then followed by the Bradshaw. So how do these transitions happen? Is it more like they happen isolated or one after other?
Okay, you're talking about that sequencing. In fact, I'm only talking about three aspects. Okay, how do you sequence it? Okay, let's take a small case. Okay, we need to do a need analysis. Okay, that is the very first step. Okay, so how are we going to do? Okay, so one thing is, okay, let's start with some statistics. Okay, so that is the quantitative secondary data. Okay, now is there a real market for this particular product? Okay, when you see that, this is very easy. Okay, sometimes freely the documents will be available, or if you pay some 5,000 rupees, you get a report from the respective agency or something. Okay, and then, okay, now it looks like there is a demand in the country or in this particular state for this particular product, but now my project is about 100 crores. Okay, I need to be segmented properly and then zero on it because I cannot really satisfy that. Then you start a survey. Okay, and then see the outcome of the survey will be a clear recommendation wherein in this middle class segment, there is a gap. If you go and address it with the right product, okay, so that will make your project successful and your product successful. Okay, that's good. So you are improving your secondary data with the primary quality data by segmenting and then isolating the specific need. Okay, and then you can identify the key stakeholders, and to reassert what your direction, go for some brainstorming and other things which can be done internally and all. So this is the kind of sequence you go. As you do that, okay, the other two should be followed. Okay, what are the data sources? Are we going ahead with one source or multiple source? How the triangulation works. And then the data what you are collecting can be of any of these type. Okay, and then you see that these data are corroborating each other. Okay, and then what? Yeah. Okay, as part of the analysis, you bring the Bradshaw's theory. Okay, so then you will really get a conclusion. Okay, if you think about it, for example, a product like Nano. Okay, so there was a myth that can Indian roads hold this particular car if they released? It is going to be millions of cars. It's going to be a dream of every the middle class or lower middle class or poor class. What happened? Okay, where it failed. Okay, so these are some of the puzzles. It's only I'm talking about only one project, but there could be many such projects. Okay, where somewhere in the initial identification and analysis, we are getting biased. Okay, by something. So I feel that it went based on the felt need rather than a properly, okay, the other established needs. Any project is always, if you look at it, moving something from here to there. Okay, so you can align it with any project. Okay, it is always from here to there. Now in this here to there, it's again so very important to understand where are we now here. Okay, so quite often without even understanding that the current state, okay, we just move into the future state. So that is where even when you reach the future state, the stakeholders don't understand how much we traveled, what are the things that they'll simply say that what have you done okay, through this project. We are all the same. They'll simply put one remark and punctured like a balloon all the efforts what you have done. So it's very important to do this current state and then systematically do the where we want to be, okay, the future state analysis to be done. And then how do we go forward with that? Okay, there are so many things. Okay, I'll just focus on two aspects. Okay, first go and okay, do the stakeholder analysis and ask them about it. Where do you want to go? Okay, again, you may see it could have been done when it comes to the beginning itself. When you go to a village or when you go to a customer or when you go to an end user, as you are asking about where you are, you can also ask them where you want to be. Okay, so it is not that I have to do one more iteration of survey and interview to do the want to be. So we need to, when we have all those things in mind, okay, in one interview, we may ask both, okay, where are you and where you want to be, okay. So the stakeholder analysis is very, very important, okay, especially this loud and clear, okay, if you go to any body of knowledge related to project management or program management or portfolio management or any strategy, okay, it says that listen to the voice of the stakeholders. Okay, once upon a time when we talk about stakeholders, it will largely speak about the CEO, IDBI, the funding agencies are the stakeholders, or the shareholders are the stakeholders. Now, the stakeholders view is 360-degree. Okay, so we need to systematically identify stakeholders, analyze their stake in the project, and you need to build that stake in the project. Then you will see the light. In that process, we need to engage them, because it is not one man's effort to build a nation or a product or a service. Okay, it is a collective output. Okay, the stakeholders need to be engaged appropriately. Okay, and then it happens through various ways in terms of assignments, decision making, communication, influencing, all those things. Okay, so this is the spectrum of stakeholders. This is actually a little bigger body of knowledge just to give you, okay, in the form of categories. Okay, we see service provider and the influencers in terms of government, statutory bodies, the people who sponsor the project, to and then the dependents in terms of the beneficiaries, end users, and others, people who are going to sustain the outcome for a longer period. Okay, they are very important. Quite often that is being ignored, because of which the project will be beautiful, state of art, commissioned with minister, prime minister. 6 months later, when you go and look at that asset or that particular service, infrastructure or anything, it will be pathetic, because the sustainment of that particular output or outcome, okay, is not considered. Who will do that and all? Okay, the end users, the governance. Okay, these are all the different categories, and then we need to evaluate it. Okay, when we do the to be. Now there are different techniques are available. Okay, so one of the technique is to place the stakeholders in the form of something called a Venn diagram. Okay, so when you see this, for example, okay, the size could be the size of the stakeholder themselves, okay, in terms of the numbers, the population, or their influence, okay, the power and influence. Okay, so all these dimensions, you can define it upfront and then do an analysis. Okay, and then you can use different colors to represent different types of stakeholders, and then you can even place this dots or bubbles appropriately. So now if you look at it in this specific case, the space represents the proximity of the stakeholders to each other. Okay, so if you look at it on the right side, there is a community that comprises of families, citizens, and households. Okay, and then if you look at it, there is a cooperative society among them. Okay, now within that there is a farmers community. So they all kind of close to each other. Okay, now there is another community which is industry. Okay, in terms of power and influence, that's pretty high. Okay, and they are pretty more closer to the Environmental and Protection Agency, and then also to the local government, and then the government sponsored some of the hospitals and other things. Okay, as you look at it, you will see that these villages are too small. Okay, when it compared to the industry. Okay, so now the industry is polluting water. Okay, there the government may be hand in hand with some corruption and other practices. Okay, even the environmental ministry could be hand in hand. They are all big, but they are too far from the people. Okay, so this is the kind of as-is analysis. You look at it, then you know that okay, to what extent we can implement certain scheme. Okay, in this juncture. Okay, if I want to do it, okay, now how do I do that? So this will open up a tremendous kind of insight. Okay, I'm seeing only one part of it. Okay, then when it comes to a to-be analysis, yeah, how do I make these people access to the ministry? Okay, shorten this sentence, how do we do that? Okay, what are the bottlenecks involved? What are the issues involved? Okay, now when we are embarking on a program, we can't change the world, but what we can do primarily to do these people. We can't change the entire river water. Maybe we can take the river water which is polluted, maybe we can treat it and then give it to these people. Okay, so you will see, okay, how we can do when we look at the stakeholders. I'm only looking at one perspective. Okay, we can look at multiple perspectives when you do the stakeholder analysis. I move on to the problem analysis next. So we understood the needs, we understood the problem. Okay, so how do we go and further, okay, analyze internally to the root causes so that we need to propose a solution. Okay, so this is something which will be very useful. I think even Parmesh teaching about in his sessions. Let me just slightly read it for you in case if this is not possible for you to read. Okay, in this analysis, the step one is identification of the core problem. Okay, so as I was telling you, the pains may be too many, the needs may be too many, wants may be too many. Okay, but we can't go about and solving every problem. Okay, within a company or within a customer or within an employee base or within a society. Okay, identify the core problem. And the second step, I'm reading from the left side, the second step is problems which are directly causing the starter problem. Okay, the secondary, okay, which are the causes. Okay, you put this below. Okay, I'll try to read out one problem. Here, the community members in a Delta River belt are contributing to poor river water quality because of unhygienic practices such as dumping of fecal waste into the river. Okay, which I think as part of Swachh Bharat, it is a nationwide problem. Okay, so it is there in every village, which I can say visibly, I was also part of it in my own village. Okay, so that is the core problem. Okay, and then I'm going to the next step. What are the causes that results in this problem? The third step, problems which are direct effect of the starter problems. Okay, so here it comes the downstream. Okay, in the second step, we are looking at the upstream in terms of root causes. In the third step, we are looking at the downstream. Okay, because of this core problem, what are the consequences that we are facing? Okay, I'll just read out the root causes, one or two. The first root cause is the community is unaware of the dangers of dumping their waste into the river. Okay, it could be household waste, it could be fecal matter. There is no toilet, they just go. Okay, whatever it is, the community don't have the awareness of the dangers involved. One root cause, that's the awareness problem. The second root cause, there is no access to quality latrine in this belt. Okay, the whole village don't have a latrine. Okay, I can tell you till 2-3 years back. Okay, my own village had no community toilet. Okay, and 95% of the home, they don't have their own toilet in their home. Okay, neither community toilet nor their own home toilet. So you can see how it could have been in our village. You just cannot enter into my village early morning. Okay, that was the condition. Second root cause. Third, poor household infrastructure prevents sewage systems, okay, from being installed into their household. Okay, they don't have an infrastructure. Okay, their home is just a one-room hut. Okay, where do you think of having a latrine for their own house? It is not there. Okay, and they cannot afford. There could be another thing. So you see this, and then why this awareness is not there? They are illiterates. Okay, like that you can go forward. Okay, so this is the first step, and then all these things relates to the river water getting polluted, or the tank, or whatever it is. I think you can visualize it in your own community and other things. So what is the effect? Higher, the other side, okay, higher incidence of waterborne diseases in the community, okay, which we often see. Okay, not just because of the water, there could be many other things. Okay, many of them have some kind of a cancer, and that is because of their own habits in terms of chewing tobacco or etc. Okay, so there is a waterborne diseases. Second, lower river water quality affects their the ecosystem. Okay, if you further go, the fishes are not there, fish catch is less, so because of which their income is coming down gradually, and because of that they become poorer and poorer. Okay, so these are the effects. So we need to do this current state analysis as a first iteration. Okay, now I have shown you one social problem. You can apply it to any industry for any project. Any questions on this? So if not, I will go to the mirror of it. The next state is objective tree, okay, which is fairly simple, okay, in order to get the to be status. What we have done is as a state analysis, and then now we go to future state analysis or to be state analysis. Now the step is very simple. You need to just turn around the coin. Okay, so the core problem again, okay, you put in the form of a solution. Okay, here the core problem is community members in the Delta River Belt are contributing to poor river water quality because of unhygienic practices, etc. So now this here is, okay, the improved access, okay, to the facilities and increased knowledge so that the community contributes to hygiene standard in their own individual home as well as the social. Okay, that is the new state, future state. Okay, and then go back and then reverse each coin. The causes will become means. Okay, the first one we talked about awareness. Okay, you just turn it around. How do I improve? Increase the awareness of the dangers of dumping their water into the river, and then teach them personally. Now we understand during this COVID times, all the more important, this is being taught in televisions, in telephones, in hoardings, everywhere we are teaching, okay, how you should be hygienic in view of this spreading pandemic. Okay, create the awareness. The second means community members have access to quality latrine at their household. Okay, wherever it is possible, you give an incentive. Okay, you just pay 5,000 rupees. Government is funding 15,000 rupees, and you will have a state-of-art latrine in your own home. And then do that. And then wherever that is still not possible, household infrastructure is improved, allocating sewage systems to be installed. Okay, so create a sewage water line. Okay, now again I can quote my own village. Okay, it was flowing in the street. Okay, so you say when it comes towns, okay, bring in the underground piping and other things, and then build a sewage treatment plant. So they have an infrastructure, they have a household infrastructure in terms of latrine, community infrastructure. Teach them. When you do that, you will see the other side, the end. Okay, there we saw this side we saw the effect. Now we see the positive end. Reduction of incidences of waterborne diseases in that community and improved river water ecosystem. Okay, the fish catch is better, economy is improving, and literacy is improving, their lifestyle is improving, and the whole society is growing. All right, there are a few more things when we do that problem tree and the solution tree or objectives tree. You will realize that our own boundaries and limitations, okay, which is too much for us, which is possible for us, what kind of issues that will come up in each of these things. And you'll see that every every node by itself may be a project in the whole journey. Okay, every node on the upstream could be a project, and every node on the downstream could be a project. Okay, the core problem is what we put in the center, and in the solution tree we put the core solution in the center. And the upstreams, we are talking about the means. What are the means through which you will solve the problem? So we saw awareness program, okay, is one of the means. Okay, so the awareness program itself will become a sub-project, and then a scheme to give a latrine to each household, okay, will be another sub-project, and then build a common piping for sewage, and then disposal in terms of treatment and disposal itself is another project. And then the effects. Okay, the effect side, there are many places where you build the infrastructure but you do not maintain it. Okay, that will be another project. And then you need to continually educate the people, improve the system. So there is a lot of change management. Okay, change in terms of habits, behavior, and other things will come up on the downstream side, the community change awareness. Okay, now all of them are not smaller. Just like that, if you just open it, people will jump into it. We can't say that. Okay, so you will see that the very simple program of creating awareness, giving incentive to build a toilet, building a underground or above ground a piping system to transport the sewage, treat it, and then help the people to use it, and then see it. So it will take maybe 5 years to see from where they are and to see where they will be in terms of improved hygiene mechanisms and improved healthcare and improved economy of that small belt. Okay, so in that process, wherever you see there are boundaries, hey, this we cannot do it. Okay, then you can see there is something called alternative tree. Okay, in terms of solution tree, okay, there could be multiple alternatives. Okay, so do that alternative tree and then see what is the viable mechanism to implement, and then draw in scope, out of scope for your project. Okay, which one is going to be, we are going to do it, which one we are not going to do it. If you are not going to do it, who will do it? Okay, so those questions will come. Then you will see a lot of collaborative effort required. Okay, in terms of building, maintaining, and then doing it. So you need to involve the self-help groups, government, the local village administration, district collector. So you will see that more and more stakeholders will start coming in. And if you pull them together, your project will be successful. Okay, so that is just to conclude the the previous analysis that we have done. So now, how do we design the project? Okay, all along we have done the identification analysis. Now, how do we translate them into a project structure? Okay, so this is again, you will see a very, very beautiful, okay, way this has been laid out. It all starts with something like identifying, okay, what is going to be the goal, the ultimate goal. Okay, now you will see that even at a project program level, our goal is okay, this outcome and goal. Okay, now this goal can be a part of your overall organization's goal or strategic goal and objective. Okay, so within that, the big picture of organization's strategic objective, okay, how is my project's goal or outcome aligns? Okay, in order to reach this outcome, what are the different outputs that I need to generate through the project? In order to create that outputs, okay, what are the activities that I need to perform? Okay, now if I drill down further, it will lead to what we have done so far. What is the need? And then what is the problem because of which the need has come up, the root cause? And then what is the means through which we are going to solve? And what will be the final one? This you translate into activities, outputs, outcomes, and goals. Okay, now this is so profound. You will see that quite often we are short-sighted in terms of project designs. Okay, we will everyone will jump into activities and outputs very happily. Okay, because that is what you experience it, you do it, and you enjoy doing it. And then when you do that, you will see the output. Okay, now to some extent we will reach out to the second step. Okay, now these outputs, how that has been transforming, okay, the people around us or the customer and the end user. Okay, then only you will see that the outcome, okay, the outcome you will come up. Okay, the output to outcome, there is a lot of behavioral, cultural, policy, procedural change involved. Okay, now which often organizations ignore. Okay, if you put them in place, you will see that the project or program reaches the outcome. When that outcome means that there is a readiness to absorb what you are giving. Okay, outcomes are what the project expects to accomplish at the beneficiary level to contribute to the population level changes. Okay, so that needs time, that needs the change management at different levels, and it needs a policy level changes, incentives. There are so many things to be done. Then this output will be absorbed by them. There is a readiness to change, and when the readiness is reached, people will start really, okay, running for it. Okay, because they see that there is a huge benefit out of it. Okay, once that outcome comes, then you will see that as the people start using it, enjoying it, reaping the benefits out of it, the organization will get the revenue, the end users will get the benefits, and the society will change, and the nation will grow. Okay, so the goals are the highest level desired results. Okay, so transformation, sustainability, livelihood, well-being, all these things will be contributed by different projects. So you will see that village level goes up to district level goes up to state level goes roll up to nation level. Okay, so now this is the journey every project and program should undertake. For that, we need to have that traceability from the basic needs to the ultimate objectives being achieved. Okay, so this needs to be constructed, okay, for any given project. Okay, so that is actually, we call it as the log frame. okay, the logical framework, which need to be systematically built at the time of designing the project. Okay, so you will see that often we go from activities towards goal. Okay, actually, that's a fundamental problem. Okay, because what we know is the activities. Okay, I'm a civil engineer. I know the activities to be done to build a house. Okay, so we intend to quickly jump into that. Okay, if you want to truly achieve the comprehensive, holistic objectives, you need to come from the top. Okay, so what is the goal that we are trying to achieve? In order to achieve that goal, what should be the outcome that we need to see? Okay, with the help of this project and product. Okay, then outcome is a state. Actually, outcome is not a product. Outcome is a state. Okay, now in order to reach this outcome, what are all the different outputs need to be produced? Okay, the outputs are the deliverables. Okay, now the outcome could be something like we want the traffic to be moving, let's say at an average speed of currently it is around 5 to 7 kilometers an hour. Now we need to move it to 15 kilometers per an hour inside the city. That is the outcome. Okay, in order to do that outcome, okay, we need to put an elevated corridor for the, let's say MRTS or the metro rail. We need to put remove many of the signals and put the crossing with the help of subway or overhead, and we need to do this, we need to do this. So you will see that there are multiple outputs contributing to that outcome. Okay, so the outputs are to be produced. In order to produce those outputs, okay, for each output you need a range of activities. Okay, so you can roughly say that for every output there will be a project. Okay, so in order to achieve an outcome, you need a program. Okay, program is a group of projects done in a coordinated manner to obtain benefits. Okay, so I can tell you very broadly, okay, in India, this project approach versus program approach, the awareness is not even 1 in 1,000 is there. Okay, at the company level as well as at the government level. You ask any of them, what is the difference between project and program? Nobody knows. Okay, they'll call as our metro rail project is going slow. Metro rail is not a project, it is a huge program. Okay, program is a set of projects done in a coordinated manner to obtain benefits. Until that benefits are demonstrated, the program doesn't end. So then you will see that we have that big picture. So within that, there will be multiple projects. For each project, you will have a different life cycle approach. Okay, so there are different life cycle approaches, predictive approach, iterative or adaptive. Those things are there. So we need to evaluate for each output what kind of life cycle is most suited, and then the life cycle will be further decomposed into activities to be conducted. So you perform activities to get the output, and in order to perform the activities, you need appropriate resources in a timely manner. The resources includes people, monetary resources, infrastructure resources, material, and other service items. So that you need to plan. Okay, so this is how, okay, the log frame is built. And horizontally, if you look at it, you need to describe everything. Describe the activities and the associated resources. You need to describe the output. Okay, now it is not just a one-liner description. Okay, for each activity and the output, okay, if I want to detail it, there will be at least 50 to 60 metadata elements will be involved. Okay, for example, if I want to describe an activity, I need to see what is the activity code, activity description, activity start date, activity finish date, what is the predecessor, the activity to be done before, the activity that follows that, who is going to work on that activity, and what is the deadline. And when we started tracking actual start date, actual finish date, actual duration, actual effort, actual cost, 50 to 60 attributes that is involved every activity. And a particular project can involve thousands of activities. Okay. Now, there are 10 to 15 such projects. So you will come across, we handle millions of data. Now, these millions of data, they are not static. Okay, they are very dynamic all through the life cycle of the project. So how do we do that? Okay, so you need to define those parameters and then define the values, measures, and then you need to set the targets or plans. Okay, so you need certain metrics. Okay, metrics at the resource level, activity level, deliverable level, and at the final outcome, which is benefit level. Okay, indicators. And each of these indicators, how am I going to verify or measure? Okay, and then how I am going to take action around that. Okay, now once again, quite often, okay, I love to define, okay, or quote that project definition like this. Project, every project is a temporary endeavor to create a unique product. Okay, so it's beautiful, just one liner, and there are about 5 characteristics to define a project. Now, if you look at it, top to bottom, we make assumptions in a project. Okay, top to bottom, we make assumptions. Okay, any project is a pack of cards, okay, built on assumptions. If you tip one assumption, okay, if it goes wrong, you will see that the whole pack of cards, okay, slide. Okay, so we need to document those assumptions whenever we make. Okay, you'll see that when you talk about a resource, we say that hey, this resource is capable, you are making an assumption. This resource is available, you are making another assumption. Okay, and then when it comes to activity, we say it starts here, it ends here, you make an assumption. It takes 2 weeks, you make an assumption. The other dependencies they will honor, you make an assumption. Okay, so you need to make sure that those assumptions are, okay, evaluated, revisited time to time, and translate them into risks. Okay, so you'll see that one of the important area in project management is risk management, for which these assumptions, constraints, and other things are to be appropriately documented and then translated into risks. As part of the planning itself, you need to evaluate the mitigation plan, bring it back and build into the master plan or original plan, so that you are prepared for most of these assumptions. If they go wrong, still my project will be intact. Okay, so these KPIs are indicators, means of verification, and then what is the assumption we are making, what is the standby plan or mitigation plan, are we prepared for that? And then the first column, the project description at activity level, resource level, output level, outcome level, goal level, will speak about our plan. Okay, how we are prepared for our plan. So I'll just, I think, take this. Okay, this is a example what we did in the one very abstracted example. In that Delta River project, you see here activities are install latin structure and conduct a quality check, build a latin cap and structure, latin specification to be done, 1.1.1, 1.1.2, 1.1.3. Just a sample 3 activities for one small deliverable. Okay, like that there could be, if there are 200 houses, there will be 200 activities to do that. And then the output is a quality latrines is the output. Okay, number 1. Number 2, local municipality, okay, people are trained on maintenance of the latrine. 3rd, Delta River community advocates training, okay, the value of using the latrine. These are the 3 things you need to put in place for us to sustain. These are the outputs. When we do that, the outcome is improved access to quality latrines for the Delta River community. Okay, not just at the beginning, okay, when it is inaugurated, but also 1 year later, if you go, you will see this outcome if you achieve these 3 outputs. When you do that, okay, the goal of improving the quality of the river water will be achieved, which in turn will give a lot of other secondary benefits. Does it make sense? This log frame, activities, outputs, outcome, and the goal.
Yes.
Okay. I think this is the fully mapped log frame. I think this is my last slide. Okay, there are many other things in terms of various estimations, feasibilities, and then proposals and all. I will skip for now all those things as part of this webinar. And what I really, we'll just look through it. I think we saw one example. Now, if I put this in a fully built log frame, it will look like this. The activities that we read it 1.1.1 to 1.1.3, for which the inputs in terms of resources, the construction material, the engineer, okay, the training curriculum, and the advocacy materials, okay, in terms of pamphlets or hoarding or whatever it is. Okay, so these are the resources with which you perform this activity. Okay, and we also saw the output. Okay, now let's look at the indicators. At an activity level, you can see how many activities are planned, how many activities are completed. That's simply an indicator. But as you move upward, okay, the measurability will come down. Okay, so from activities to output, output to outcome, outcome to goal, the measurability will come down. It is very difficult to define. That is where in many projects, okay, we go with simply output and then close the project. And you will see that it is like, oh, the operation went on for 6 hours. It is very successful. Okay, how is the patient? They'll say that he's no more. Okay, so that is the kind of result we see in many projects. That is because though it is difficult at the top, we need to find out ways and means to define the indicators and then put the measuring mechanisms and then work on it. Okay, so that's where actually the program level, okay, the benefit management, the governance, all those things play a vital role. Let me just show you some of those indicators. At the output level for this particular project, it goes like this. Number of latrines constructed within the households by end of phase 2 or by end of 1 year. It's very easy. Okay, my target is to build some 150 latrines, how much I could complete. Then the number of municipality staff trained, fairly easy. Okay, number of community advocates trained on it, good. I have a school teachers or students as volunteers to do these things. They'll go and do that, very easy. When you move to outcome level, percentage increase of the use of latrine by the end of the project in comparison with the beginning of the project. Okay, now you will see that in many projects that as is analysis would not have done. Okay, now when it comes to latrine, maybe relatively easy, but think about, okay, I'm putting up a metro rail network in a city. If someone asks, okay, what was the kind of pollution levels before and after? Okay, what kind of the commuter traffic? Okay, how was it? I was just mentioning one metric. What is the average speed, okay, of a vehicle before and now? Okay, maybe we may not have done that survey. Okay, how the respiratory aspects of the people, okay, was there, the well-being of the people before the project and after the project. It all needs a meticulous kind of defining those metrics and then do that. Percentage increase of use by the people. Percentage of community members who express satisfaction with the distance, quality, condition of the latrine by the end of the project. So you need to put certain measurement mechanism in place, and you need to follow it. Okay. So what is the means of verification? I'll do a pre-survey, I'll do a post survey, I'll also bring some of the people, discuss with them, and then get their felt experience about it. Okay. And at the goal level, percentage reduction of the presence of pollutants in the Delta River. Okay, this is one. There are a few more we can define. How was the economic condition of the people? How is the fish catch before and now? Okay, how many people from this village, okay, over a period of time, okay, before that, what were they doing? Okay, they might have simply, okay, roaming around, drinking and beating their wives, etc. Okay, now after 10 years from now, when we have done this program, how the children, the next generation is doing. Okay, these are all at the transformation level indicators, and we need to put a mechanism to verify it, and in order to improve the holistic. Okay, that is how I see that the dream of build India and then make in India. Okay, so I was telling last time also. Okay, I don't know somebody to instruct and advise Modi. In order to make in India, you need to first build India. In order to build India, we need projects, programs. Okay, I showed you one statistic before. How much very poorly we are spending on research and development. Okay, so we don't do that. I'm sure. Okay, some space and few areas we are doing extremely well, but there are a lot of areas in terms of agriculture or urban development and railways. We can count. Okay, we have tremendous intellectual capability within the country, but we do very minuscule what we are doing. That is because okay, we don't have that the long-term view. Okay, everyone think about what I will do in the 5 years so that I come back again. Okay, we don't look at about 50 years from now. No matter who rules the government, the nation should grow. So that is available. Maybe very, very few people, and I believe the 10 what whom you are attending is in that category. Okay, so I'm so happy to take this to you. So you take it to your directors and ministers and then do that. Okay, so in fact, this is my dream. This is actually what I have taken it from the PM project management for NGOs, and from 2019, actually I'm taking it as one of my passion to take this, okay, the project management for society and government, okay, to be communicated at different levels, not really to make big money out of it, but to see, okay, our nation being transformed.